In 2022, the world started to get a much more interesting place when it comes to AI. In November, we had ChatGPT got released. In 2 months, we hit 100 million users on ChatGPT. This is the fastest adoption of any technology ever. Fastest number of users, faster than Google, faster than, iPhones, anything like that, any sort of, technology. This was the fastest in history. What we are starting to see, in 2022 is that generative AI was going to be really the next general purpose technology. Really kind of the last new general purpose technology was the internet, and before that was personal computers in the 1980s. So it's something that's only comes out, every couple decades. The world is sort of the before ChatGPT got released and afterwards.
All right. Good afternoon after a couple of minutes of delay here, but my name is Julie Yaki. I work at Constellation Energy, and I would like to give a very warm welcome to everybody that's attending our webinar today, as well as our esteemed guests. We're going to be talking about the force of emerging technology. I'm sorry, emerging technology in nuclear energy. And we have some very exciting presentations today from Lana Eilertsen, Brian Carroll, Dr. John Brockman, Sarah Peden. Let me just quickly introduce them. So we have, first up, we have Brian Carroll. Brian works at Constellation Nuclear with me, and Brian focuses on driving digital initiatives that enhance operational efficiency and support strategic decision-making across Constellation Nuclear. Let's move to our next guest. Lana Eilertsen is a devoted champion of innovation and currently a senior workweek manager. She has 15 years experience working in the utility industry, including roles in nuclear generation, operations, etc. And Lana is one of our esteemed member of our Strengthen subcommittee on the Professional Development Committee. So Lana, thank you. Next. Dr. John Brockman is Associate Director of Research at the University of Missouri Research Reactor. Dr. Brockman serves over the past past 2 decades, Dr. Brockman has been deeply involved in advancing nuclear science and engineering with a particular focus on radiopharmaceutical development and isotope production. Welcome, Dr. Brockman. And last but not least, Sarah Peden, Global Head of Sales from Nuclear. And for the past 15 years, Sarah has led digital transformations across Fortune 500 organizations and specializes in artificial intelligence and business innovation. Again, welcome to all of our speakers. And before we get into our presentation, let me just go through a few housekeeping items. Today's presentation will be recorded and it will be posted to the US Win YouTube channel. We're also going to post our presentation in the US Win PD library. Please enter questions for today's speakers into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. We also have a chat section, but we use the chat section for our participants to kind of talk amongst themselves. So feel free to have any interesting conversations with your peers, the other attendees on this webinar. But again, please put your questions in the Q&A. At the end of the webinar, we will then take time to address as many questions as we possibly can. And potentially some of our speakers may also get to answer your questions directly in the Q&A section. So again, our presentation is being recorded. And with that, let's get started. Again, our first presenter today is Brian Carroll from Constellation. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey everyone, really glad to be here today, and I'm really excited to tell you about our first digital twin at Constellation Digital Plant Viewer. We deployed a digital plant viewer back as early as 2017 and 2018, and we're still using it, we're still making updates to it, and we're expanding the platform as time goes on. Next slide, please. So the idea behind Plant Viewer is that we had so many different pieces of information and different pieces of software throughout the business, and particularly we were focusing on the radiation protection use cases for this. Um, for instance, to perform a pre-job brief in radiation protection, you needed telemetry information from the radiation sensors, you needed floor plans, you needed survey maps, you needed virtual views of the areas that to perform walkdowns as part of the pre-job brief. And this was all a very manual process before. So we designed Digital Plant Viewer to provide a centralized web-based platform for accessing plant data, which really made it easy for workers to collaborate and make informed decisions from anywhere. And since we rolled this out right before COVID, it also allowed people to be able to monitor things remotely, and it allowed corporate to be able to monitor what was going on at the sites. So it not only incorporated telemetry and maps, but it incorporated live video cameras as well, which was a very popular feature during the outages. It allowed for benefits such as monitoring work time. The 360-degree tours were taken. We used 360-degree cameras that were able to, and we used these different floor plan points throughout the plants. And we were able to create a virtual model where you could actually go into Digital Plant Viewer and you could walk through these scenes and you could walk down an area to see what hazards the radiation protection techs could point out, various high red areas, various pieces of equipment to look out for. And all that could be done in both, to assist the supervisors when giving those briefings, but also to allow for a self-service functionality to allow workers to be able to perform some of the briefings themselves, reducing the amount of labor required. So with that, I'd like to show you Digital Plant Viewer. So if we're going to move to the next slide, it's going to be a short video, which is going to show you the application and some of the benefits. So please go ahead. I don't think there's any audio. So
Hey, can we get the audio fixed?
I think
Yeah, I
that
believe-
has to be fixed on your end. Actually, let me see.
yeah, I believe when you do the share, you need to go to advanced and click on the share audio. I think that's what it needs to occur.
Yeah, I think it's whoever's sharing. So I think
degree images, live
go.
video feeds, live RP surveys, and wireless telemetry for plant temperatures and dose rates. In addition to the maps, other tools are available on the web page, which provide a single portal to complete other tasks, such as accessing LMS, passport, or shift logs. This is a pre-job brief in progress. The supervisor is using Digital Plant Viewer to review walking paths and review hazards that could be in the area where work is about to be performed. By conducting the brief with the Digital Plant Viewer, it enables the workers to ask questions and discuss the work plan prior to going out into the plant. This supervisor is in the field with his crew, but he is able to respond to a question from another location.
Go to the home page, 69 foot, go to the aux building.
The Digital Plant Viewer enables him to review the work in progress at the other job site and answer the questions without leaving his team. The RP desk is a busy hub where workers wait in line to obtain survey information and ask questions about the area in which they need to go to perform work. The Digital Plant Viewer helps to alleviate the wait time by simply checking the touchscreen for information and surveys that are embedded within the tool. The Outage Control Center is using the Digital Plant Viewer to monitor the progress of work in the plant with live video feeds and telemetry. OCC personnel can view the progress of work in the field and report out immediate status to the entire team. In addition, they can also see live dose rates and temperatures in the field. This saves time and dose by not physically going into the plant to check progress.
Next slide, please. All right. So yeah, it's really memorable for me to go back and watch that video. We made that video actually back in 2018 when we deployed Digital Plant Viewer for the first time, and that was one of the videos we used for adoption. But we had also submitted that video to NEI, and it won a TIP award back in 2017. So that was the submission video actually, but it's also just a great demo of what the application can do and some of the awesome use cases that it has. But But anyways, it spoke to some of the benefits. So can definitely help with reducing the lines at the RP desk. I mean, during the outage, the lines, before Digital Plant Viewer at our Constellation facilities could get quite long because we had a procedural requirement that you get a pre-job brief by an RP tech, even for minor work. By using the Digital Plant Viewer, we were able to reduce the amount of briefings that the RP had to perform by allowing self-service briefings using the tool. We put all the information into the tool and put everything at everybody's fingertips. One of the cameras that we build into Digital Plant Viewer for remote monitoring are very popular during the outage, especially when they start refueling. It allows all the personnel who need to be able to watch those operations tap into the site camera system, be able to see what's going on, and be able to just see what's happening in the containment before they go in, which allows them to optimally plan their work and make sure that they get there where they're not going to hit bottlenecks trying to get in and out. And that was a huge savings. Um, the OCC uses it, as the video pointed out. It allows them to monitor activities. It allows them to, find out what's going on in the plant without having to make phone calls in many cases, reducing the amount of work. And yeah, just a lot of benefits. And we've been realizing those over many years now. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the first pilot was at Peach Bottom in fall of 2017, and the fleet-wide deployment was in 2018. The tours are very impressive. We're actually working on improving the tours at this point. We brought in a new technology called Navis. The original tours were taken with a Insta360 Pro camera that we actually positioned throughout the plant and took the 360 photos. Now we have a cart that we push around and it automatically takes the pictures and it performs a laser scan of the affected area at the same time. This not only allows us to have the detailed imagery, but allows us to have 3D maps and be able to perform measurements on the image because you have the benefit of the LiDAR scan, which is occurring at the same time as the digital pictures. It did allow for some contractor staff reductions during the outage because you didn't need as many people performing the briefings and just the improved efficiency of getting people in and out of the containment by providing the right information to them. And next slide, please. And finally, it allowed us to achieve a total cost savings of initially of about $1.67 million with the reduction in contract staff and also just the better flow of information and optimization of work at the site. It truly was one of our first digital twin projects at Constellation, as I mentioned before. And we built on top of it since then. We've got a Nexus now, which is essentially taking the RP type information, which was in Digital Plant Viewer that we've talked about, and it now incorporates things like work management information, and it incorporates meeting packages, different types of things that were built on top of Digital Plant Viewer in order to extend the value case even further. So it's really something, it provided a foundation, and it's something that we've been building on ever since, and we're really proud of it at Constellation. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Brian. I know this is a great system and we're really proud of it at Constellation. So that was a great presentation, thank you. Again, I just want to remind everyone that if you would like to add some questions for Brian into the Q&A, he may be able to answer them, online, or else we'll address some of them at the end of the presentation. Okay, so let's now move to Lana Eilertsen, and she's going to talk about some robotics use cases. Hi, Lana.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our wonderful emerging technology webinar with Professional Development Committee across the United States Women in Nuclear. I'm really excited to talk to you today about robotics. And when I talk about robotics, what I'm talking about is the larger scale use of robotics across the nuclear industry, across the energy industry as a whole, really, when we talk about generating electricity holistically. I have multiple use cases I would love to share with you that we've got all across the Southeast region of the United States that I know are duplicated at Southern Company, at Duke, you name it. We have a lot of really great information, but a couple of things that a lot of people don't think about is what does it take to implement robotics at your site? So I wanted to really give us a groundwork to understand where we go with robotics once we decide we want to try it. A couple of things that are very, very, very important when you talk about the use of robotics. First of all, there's lingo. When we talk about marine robotics or underwater robotics, we typically refer to them as ROVs, or remotely operated vehicles. Ground robotics are robots, what we generally refer to as just robots. And then we have aerial robotics, which everyone talks about. They are drones, specifically unmanned aerial services. So that's when you start hearing UAS or drones, you are generally referring to aerial robotics. So today you'll hear me say robots about ground robotics, ROVs when I'm talking about marine robotics, and then you'll also hear me talk about drones or UAS services. Next big thing. When we pick a robot, a major consideration in our utility industry right now, can you go back a slide? A major consideration in our utility industry right now is cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is a very, very, very real issue. It's something we all have to talk about. So when you pick a robot, it's important to understand the network capability, whether it transmits signals. If you're inside the plant, does it emit signals that you don't want emitted around sensitive equipment? A couple of other things to consider are supplementary equipment. Do you need to have an iron key? How are you going to transmit data from the robot to your user so that they can understand, translate, and gather that information? And all of that takes training, of course. So that was kind of the ground state I wanted you to understand when we talk about robotics. There are a number of requirements that we think about in those use cases to ensure everybody is on the same page, that A, we're doing the job correctly, and B, we're not putting the plant at risk at any time. And as you can see, we're going to be talking about marine or ROV robotics first. Next slide, please. So this very first robot is one of my favorites. This is called the Deep Trekker Pipe Crawler. Deep Trekker hosts a number of robots that can be dry or wet. Because they can be submerged, they are referred to as marine robotics or ROVs. This particular pipe crawler is amazing. It can navigate diameters of piping as small as 8 inches and as wide as a typical cable tunnel that might run underneath a switch yard. So this particular robot operates on a tether. Because it is submersible,
Lana, we have lost your audio. You froze up. Can you hear us? My apologies, everybody. We're trying to resolve the situation. Please bear with us. Looks like Lana is rejoining. If you can bear with us for a moment, I'd appreciate that.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Lana. Yeah. Oh, you just went back on mute. Try again. Yep, you're good.
Oh, I'm not sure what's going on. All right, but this particular robot, if you want to go to the next slide, we are very excited about how we've been able to explore this use at 2 different utilities. The pipe crawler has been used in a couple different instances. I mentioned those cable tunnels that run typically under switch yards. So generally speaking, there is a long tunnel that tends to run under a site switch yard that hosts a number of cables, a number of pipes, a number of anything. But the big thing about these cable tunnels is when it rains, they get wet. So a lot of the time after rain, when you need to inspect these long cable tunnels, there is a concern for personnel safety, right? It's cables, it's water. There is always a potential for injury, whether it's due to slip, fall, or shock. So using the deep tracker pipe crawler, we are able to actually run video footage, the full length of the pipe tunnel in a number of different directions from the main transfer path. And we were able to avoid a number of significant injuries that could have been a potential to our personnel. And when we talk about value saved, preventing personal injury, in my opinion, is absolutely number one. Next slide, please. Another great use we found outside of nuclear in general, but still very valuable, when you look at intake canals, outside of the plant, I mean, when you look at intake canals or when you look at output where cooling water flow might pass from a local river. This particular use case we did at a dam on a tail deck, which resembles the intake area of a nuclear power facility. And it gets wet. There's a lot of spray, there's a lot of splashing, there's a lot of everything, but it requires consistent inspection and it requires consistent preventative maintenance to ensure that our equipment is operating properly. So the Deep Tracker has, as I mentioned, 3 different size wheels, and one of them has a really heavy duty tread. So inspections are able to be done on these hyper slick surfaces with ease, and it prevents putting an employee at risk on these wet surfaces. Next slide, please. This is another great example of an ROV. Video Ray has a number of submersibles, and these are fully submersibles, which means they cannot be turned on until they are completely underwater, or you risk burning out the motor. This particular Video Ray device is called the Ally, and it is unique in that it has forward, backward, and side thrusters, and it has the capability of going as fast as 4 knots. It's quite lightweight, and it has a 300-meter depth rating. I don't know of many nuclear plants in the central United States that needs to reach 300 meters in depth, but it's nice to know. The Video Ray Ally has come in great handy when we do intake canal inspections and along some of our river systems. Next slide, please. One particular one of interest, I'm sure many of you remember Hurricane Helene. I believe it was downgraded to Winter Storm Helene, but Helene did a lot of damage from as far south as, I want to say, Marietta, Georgia, to almost completely destroying large portions of North Carolina. It overflowed the entire Tennessee River Valley, a great, great deal. And what we had a wonderful opportunity to use the Video Ray ROV for was to put it underwater, check and make sure that we were hopefully finding survivors if anybody had been caught in gathering currents. We were able to do inspections underwater of various equipment to ensure it wasn't being damaged further that would cause even greater problems in the valley. So the Video Ray Ally was a major asset when we absolutely would never want to put a diver in the water and put them at risk. Next slide, please. So I've talked to you a lot about ROVs, marine robotics, and now I'm going to talk about ground robots that we typically refer to as robots. And I've got a couple of fun ones in here that I'd like to share. So next slide, please. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Misty the robot. Misty was very popular at the beginning of COVID-19. When the entire world was going home, everybody was concerned about person-to-person contact. the spread of the illness was just rampant. We attempted to test MISTY to take people's temperatures, to transmit information between people at a distance. We attempted a number of different things. MISTY was fun, great to play with. We were able to learn a lot about programming of robots and learning scalability. We eventually retired MISTY because things changed. The dynamic of COVID-19 changed, and the needs of the organization changed. But MISTY was a great learning opportunity. Next slide, please. The next one, this one is of particular interest. So this is the Sarcos Guardian S SnakeBot. This is no longer in production, but we had an amazing opportunity to test this robot because that very unique heavy terrain track is filled with a very unique magnetic system. So this particular robot had the capability of magnetically being on the inside of a reactor cavity during an outage and gathering a great deal of information. We have a number of different facilities in the area where we could test that metal and that magnetism. We didn't actually put it in the reactor cavity, but the capability did exist. So that was another opportunity for us to see a wall crawler style robot that really gave us a unique view of how we can investigate things without putting folks at risk, without having to do reaching in tight spaces or going into high risk areas. So that was the Sarcos Guardian S SnakeBot that has been retired since it is no longer in production. Next slide, please. I am sure everybody on the call has heard of Boston Dynamics quadrupedal robot, affectionately referred to as SPOT. Duke Energy uses SPOT. I know Southern has one, and we have a couple of them at the Tennessee Valley Authority. SPOT is very, very unique in a couple of different ways. You can see it's quadrupedal, but what you don't see in this particular photo is its mobility. It can move sideways, it can move back, forward, up, down. The front can raise and lower, the back can raise and lower. The particular model shown has a unique LiDAR camera on the front that enable it to have an extraordinarily far range to be mobile. You can pre-program automated rounds with it, and it can go as much as 500 meters without needing any land markers, because that LiDAR unit will pick it up and cause it to automatically pause if, say, a vehicle's passing or something of that nature. Next slide, please. One use case we learned of associated with SPOT happened here at the Tennessee Valley Authority. We had a great opportunity to investigate a particular building sump. So what is unique about this particular building sump with the age of nuclear reactors across the United States is some sumps have or are believed to be, I'm going to use that very intentionally, highly radioactive or have radiological contamination in them. And we consider them potentially lethal. So those sumps are places that we may not want to send a human being in. We'll investigate them with cameras to the best of our ability, and we will lower radiological equipment into them to the best of our ability. But in many cases, sumps can be extremely long and narrow, and you might not have the ability to put something into it to get a full depth and breadth view. We were able to lower the quadrupedal robot into a sump, have it navigate the space, gather radiological data based on the equipment that was attached to the robot, and get it back out. In so doing, we downgraded what was considered a locked high radiation space into a non-permitted confined space. It's still a radiological area, but it's relatively safe for human entrance, which also made this area that had not been investigated for such a great length of time to be on a shorter periodicity for preventative maintenance purposes. Next slide, please. Another unique use case we learned about with Spot was a combustion turbine plant in a remote area of eastern Mississippi. And when I say remote, I mean the nearest town was approximately 45 minutes away. So this is a very remote area. And there was an alarm condition identified at the plant. Now, what's unique about combustion turbine plants is they're not facilitated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are only facilitated as needed Monday through Friday on days. And then they are called out on those back hours. Well, at 7:13 p.m. on October 29th last year, the plant manager received a notification of an alarm condition. He got all the right people ready and were prepared to deploy. And as he was making the notifications he needed to make, he deployed this quadrupedal robot to go do thermography, take video, do air sampling, and catch any noise information that could be gathered. And with all of those resources, was able to determine that the alarm was in fact not valid. It was a false alarm. What that meant is he did not have to have 4 different people respond from as many as 3 hours away. He did not have to call out emergency services and emergency responders to the facility. So this was a major win in cost of bringing in emergency personnel, but also in cost of recognizing that work-life balance of our personnel. As much as personnel safety is valuable, our people's lives are valuable outside of work too. So this one was a win for all parties involved. Next slide, please. And this is my last one for you regarding the quadrupedal robot of Spot. We, at a combined cycle plant, experienced at one of the nuclear utilities in the Southeast region here, a transformer had an alarm condition, and one of the gas analyzer monitors on the transformer was in alarm. So typically we would go through a number of different things, approximately 6 to 16 hours of gathering the right personnel, getting engineering involved, ensuring we had all the right players so we could go investigate this locally and ensure that that gas analyzer monitor is in a safe condition. We were able to deploy a robot rather than a human being and keep them safe. Again, doing thermography, video, and getting all the correct data with the correct instrumentation to ensure that that alarm condition was not going to present a safety risk for personnel. So that's just a few examples of ground robotics and some of the use cases we have learned of in the course of the past few years. Next slide, please. So this one is arguably my favorite. I get very excited about drones. Part of it's just my love of flying, and the other part of it is just the fascination with the capabilities that drones are presenting every day. So next slide, please. So this particular drone, this is the Skydio X10. This is manufactured in the United States, and it is a very unique drone because it comes with a dock. It has some AI capability to gather the data and the video footage from the drone, essentially sort it, analyze it, and present findings to the end user. At the Tennessee Valley Authority, we are not currently using any AI or the docking station yet, but it's something of great interest to us because we know of the utilities. Skydio X10 has amazing capability of traveling in below 0 temperatures all the way up to 113 degrees. It can go up to 15,000 feet in altitude. You can get as much as 40 minutes. And if you've ever flown a drone, that is a lot of time to fly a drone. Many out there on the market can barely get 20 minutes. So that's an immense change in the marketability of drones as a whole. Next slide, please. So this one I really was excited to share with you. At the Tennessee Valley Authority, we use 150 different types of drone aircraft. And in our fiscal year 2024, we had 71 FAA licensed pilots. We accomplished 3,200 flight hours, 9,300 flights. It's insane. And as you can see, it's across 7 states that we've been able to use drones to do investigative work that did not put humans at risk. We were able to gather data from afar in a very, very powerful and valuable way. Next slide, please. And that's just the Tennessee Valley Authority. I want to reiterate that. When you look at our other utilities in the Southeast region, I know that those numbers are triple that. This one, again, back to Hurricane Helene, Winter Storm Helene. There is a particular dam in the state of Tennessee called the Nolichucky Dam. Nolichucky is greater than much older than even the Tennessee Valley Authority. It is more than 100 years old. When Helene happened, it was the most unique situation ever. For the first time in history, this dam overflowed, as you can see from the footage seen present. We were able to use marine robotics and aerial robotics to get valuable information on the state of the dam to ensure that we were keeping anyone and everything downstream of the dam safe. I'm very excited to tell you, Nolichucky stood strong. There were no issues, but it was the amazing capability of having that eye in the sky to know that it'd be safe. Next slide, please. Another great use case drones have found across the nuclear power industry is switchyard investigations. At a nuclear plant, a substation electrical bus was damaged, and the way it had been damaged, it had fallen in such a manner that to investigate it and ensure that power could be shut off to that electrical bus, we needed to get eyes on that particular bus, that we would have a means of shutting off power without damaging the facility. So again, aerial technology, we were able to get it up in the air. We were able to get 360-degree footage in and around the bus. We got thermography. We got a lot of great detailed information, and we're able to identify a safe way of shutting off power to that bus that would not put the plant and, most importantly, our personnel at risk. Next slide, please. So as you can see, I have a ton of information about robotics, and this was just a small selection of the number of use cases that we've been able to identify across the industry for robotics. I would be happy to answer any questions anyone has about them at any time.
Great. Thank you so much, Lana. That was a great presentation. And also, I'm in love with Misty the robot. I want one now. Okay, let's move to the next slide. And I'll hand it over to Dr. John Brockman, and he'll talk to us about some medical isotopes.
Thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate the invitation to speak at the Women in Nuclear and this sort of nuclear energy adjacent field. So thank you so much for hosting me. And I'm going to tell a story today about the MU Research Reactor and this mission that we have evolved over the last 20 years or so to be a producer for medical isotopes for the nation. Next slide, please. So for those unfamiliar with the MU Research Reactor, we are a 10 megawatt reactor that is located in Columbia, Missouri. We were first came online in 1966, so we're approaching our 60th birthday. The reactor that you see is a one-off design, so there are no other reactors like it. Probably the most similar reactor in design is the Advanced Test Reactor at Idaho National Laboratory and the MIT Research Reactor. You're looking at a top-down view of the core and the facility. The reactor itself is not very large. It will fit inside a 55-gallon drum. The circular positions that you see on the diagram, they're circular in gray, those are all irradiation positions. And some of them are available at power and some of them are not. And so In order to maximize use of this reactor for many decades now, we have operated in a very unique schedule. This reactor operates 52 weeks per year, 6.5 days a week, 24 hours a day. We shut down the reactor Sunday night at 10 p.m. For a refuel. And during that time, we do preventative maintenance, and we're able to pull isotopes, medical isotopes, out of the very center of the reactor. So if you look at the very center of that diagram, you'll see 3 large gray circles, and then on the outside of those, there's 3 smaller gray circles. So that's the area of the reactor we call the flux trap that has the brightest neutron flux intensity, and that's where we tend to make the medical isotopes that we produce at our facility. In addition to the flux trap, we can irradiate outside of the beryllium reflector. So that's the darkest gray region that you see, and you'll see many holes, many circular openings in that graphite reflector region as well. And we do many kinds of experiments in that area of the reactor, from neutron activation analysis, isotope production, and material damage kinds of studies, and also neutron transmutation doping. And then we as well have 3 beam tubes where we can extract beams of neutrons and do material science with those beams of neutrons. The reactor itself has grown quite a bit over the last 20 years as we've gotten into the medical isotope field. And so this year we're up to about 300 FTE, and you can see a picture of some of our staff in the center there. And then in order to run the reactor, we use professional reactor operators. So we have 6 crews that operate, and when they're not operating the reactor, they're doing training cycles and maintenance cycles as well. A distinguishing feature of the reactor is the peak thermal flux. So we have the highest thermal flux of any research reactor at a university at 4.5 times 10 to the 14 neutrons per centimeter squared per second. That's perturbed flux in the center of the flux trap. Next slide, please. So when I say medical isotopes, this is what I'm talking about. So this is a new way to do cancer treatments. Usually when we have thought about nuclear medicine, we think about external beam therapy. And there you're using X-rays typically produced from a linear accelerator. And we do something called gamma knife, where you bring a beam of X-rays through a person that's interacting with the tumor. In this new style of radioligand therapy, we are designing new chemical agents that on one side contain a radioisotope that's tightly chelated, and on the other side contain a ligand that is selective to a target expressed in a tumor cell. So what's changed in this field, which has been around for decades, and in the last 7 years or so, there's been 2 new radioligand therapies that have been approved by the FDA for use in the United States. The first of those was Lutathera. It's used for the treatment of neuroendocrine tumors, so a specific type of pancreatic cancer. As the radioisotope therapy agent, it uses lutetium-177, which is a reactor-produced isotope. So the radioligand therapy delivers this isotope where it emits beta particles and kills tumor cells. This is often called theranostics because in addition to a therapy isotope, we often also use an imaging isotope. So this is an idea that you treat what you see and you see what you treat. So unlike other conventional chemotherapy or ADC or immunotherapy techniques, before you deliver a tumor-killing amount of radiation, you can first see if the treatment will work by replacing that therapy radioisotope with an imaging radioisotope. So in the treatment of Lutathera, treatment of neuroendocrine tumors, you use a drug called NetSpot, which has got that lutetium-177 replaced with a gallium-68 positron-emitting isotope. So you can see the tumor. If the tumor lights up, then you know that when you deliver the therapy dose with the lutetium-177, it's going to attack the tumor cells. And so these therapies, they range in efficacy from Lutathera. You can get curative treatments. And the next one that's online now is Pluvicto. That is for prostate cancer. Also uses lutetium-177 as the therapy isotope. And there it has extension of life over conventional therapeutics. You know, when we first start looking at these treatments, they're always sort of end of care treatments. And now, as we've had Pluvicto for a couple of years as an FDA-approved drug, there's clinical trials to move it closer and closer to first-line treatment. And every time you move Pluvicto closer and closer to first-line treatment, we see further and further extension of life. And then another key component of these is not only does it treat the cancer, but it does so in a way that's not as detrimental to quality of life as traditional chemotherapy agents. So these patients, they come in for a single dose, and oftentimes they have vast improvement in quality of life for many, many months. Next slide. So this is how this actually works at the MER. So we make lutetium-177 on a commercial scale. You can do that by two different ways. If you remember your nuclear engineering background, you can irradiate lutetium-176 with neutrons, make lutetium-177. That's called direct route or carrier added. This means that not every lutetium atom is lutetium-177. And so many of the molecules that you make, the radioligand therapy molecules, are actually duds because they contain cold lutetium. The other issue with this route is that lutetium-177M has a 160-day half-life. And while you don't make too much of it, it does make things very difficult for the hospital who's administering care to deal with the waste. The next route is called the indirect route. We often call this no carrier added. And here we start with an enriched ytterbium-176 target. We make ytterbium-177, we let that decay to lutetium-177, and then we chemically separate those two. That turns out to be about the second hardest chemical separation on the periodic table. These rare earth elements all have very similar chemistry, and the only real difference between ytterbium and lutetium is in the radius of the 3+ ion. And so it's very, very challenging chemistry, but we've learned how to do that at the University of Missouri, and we now do it as an active pharmaceutical ingredient, which means not only are we inspected regularly by the NRC, but we're also inspected on a very frequent basis by the FDA for this particular active pharmaceutical ingredient that we're making. Next slide. And to give you a sense of scale of what's going on, MER is the largest U.S. supplier of 4 radioisotopes. So I talked about lutetium-177, but there's 3 others that are used in this fight against cancer. And last year, we produced over 450,000 patient doses, which is more than every home football game at the University of Missouri over the course of a football season. And that also means we do quite a lot of shipment of radioactive material. So last year, the facility shipped over 4,000 packages of radioactive material out of our shipping and receiving building, which is about 10 times more than the Department of Energy isotope program ships per year. Next slide. And so I want to also make the point that the University of Missouri is more than just an isotope producer. So we do that because of the power of our reactor. We're able to do it at scale, but we combine that with many other facilities across campus. So right across the street, we have the Molecular Imaging and Theranostics Center. That's 17,000 square feet of synthetic organic chemistry space where we can make new kinds of molecules. We can take those molecules and label them with radioisotopes that we make at the MER or cyclotron, or that we aggregate from other isotope producers. And then we can take those from discovery all the way through small animal experiments. We have small animal PET CT and MRI in the building. We can then pair with the College of Veterinary Medicine. At the College of Veterinary Medicine, you can have your dog treated with Lutathera or yttrium-90 TheraSpheres. You can do randomized clinical trials in pets. So you can enroll your pet in a clinical trial that tests some of these new therapies, or you can just order it and pay for it. I think the College of Veterinary Medicine actually does more iodine-131 treatments than any other place in the country. And we're now working towards clinical trials with our School of Medicine and the Ellis Fischel Cancer Center, and we hope to have phase 1 clinical trials, first in human clinical trials with these new radioligand therapies available at the University of Missouri in the next few years. I also am happy to say that we are starting up a new building called the Radioisotope Science Center. It's a collaboration between the Department of Energy and the state of Missouri. It'll be a new $40 million building sited adjacent to where we hope to put our new reactor. And in that building, we'll be developing new isotope separation techniques at scale with the Department of Energy. And then I'll talk more about next-gen MER on a subsequent slide. So next slide. So just to give you a look at the wave that we're starting to ride here, radioligand therapies have been described as a new pillar in the treatment of cancer. There's 2 commercial successes so far. So if you look at this very busy chart, at the very center, you'll see triangles representing Lutathera and Pluvicto. And now that those 2 have been demonstrated as commercial successes, as you look around the outside of the circle, you'll see many companies from very small companies all the way to the very large Eli Lilly, Bristol Myers Squibb, and they're all working in this new game of radioligand therapies, and they're pushing new products through clinical trials, and that's what these rings represent. So the inner ring, the inner circle is FDA approved, and as you move towards the outside, they're further and further away in phase 3, phase 2, phase 1, and discovery phases. And so the University of Missouri Research Reactor, which is by far the largest supplier of many of these isotopes, is almost full. And there is no easy path to additional US manufacturing of these isotopes in the United States. And so that's why we are proposing on the next slide, the next-gen MER. This is an idea that's been about 3 years in the making now. We have gone through an RFP process and have selected a reactor designer, the Korea Atomic Energy Research Institute, construction engineering firm, Hyundai Engineering Corporation, and licensed experts, NPR. And we are in the phase 1 of 4 of working towards a new 20 megawatt research reactor with a peak flux that matches what the current MER has, 2 times the high flux irradiation capacity, and this 52-week operation schedule. Why build this at the University of Missouri? Well, it's a research reactor, so we can take advantage of the DOE Research Reactor Fuel Lease Program. We have 50 plus years experience of operating a 10 megawatt reactor, and we're already making medical isotopes for the world, for the nation. Next slide. And so what else do we want to do at this research reactor? So workforce development, we're already working on this. So we train many operators. We have a very good radiation protection program. Shipping is one of our key strengths. We want to do radioisotope science. So I've already talked about the DOE radioisotope science building. We want to be a hub for basic preclinical and clinical radiopharmaceutical research. And we're already developing many industry partnerships with the medical isotopes that we produce right now. But that's not all we would like to do. So this new opportunity, this new reactor gives us an opportunity to participate further in neutron beam science. We propose a national user facility for neutron scattering with 15 to 20 new neutron scattering instruments. There are many papers and reports from national agencies describing a lack of neutron scattering and neutron science capacity in the United States. We also want to do nuclear material science. And so a 20 megawatt reactor would also be a very good test platform for new nuclear materials. We think this has strategic alignment with the NSUF, and we're starting to actually do more nuclear materials experiments at our current reactor. And I think that's all I've got for you today. So thank you very much for your attention, and look forward to any questions that might come up.
Great. That was a great presentation, John. I appreciate it. And, you know, some of these treatments can't come soon enough for millions and millions of people. So this is amazing work. Very, very impressive. All right. So please enter any questions that you have for John into the Q&A, and then we'll address them at the end. And then let's move to Sarah Peden. And Sarah, take it away.
Hi, well, thank you guys so much. Really excited to be here today. I head up sales for Nuclear, which is a generative AI company. We have been around, if there's an OG of the nuclear AI industry, it is us. We've been around since all of 2021, if that tells you how new this entire industry is. What we're really looking at today, if you want to move to the next slide, is, where have we been and where are we going? So over the past 5 years, if you really look back to, 2020, AI was in its infancy still. It was really, coming from the big tech world, we just called it machine learning. We're going to do an algorithm in machine learning. In nuclear, really, we're looking at very, limited internal use cases, using very traditional machine learning, technologies, and really starting to show that there was some value. You can trust it. You can get insights. You can get some things out of those machine learning models. When you jump to 2021, nuclear was actually the first one to come out with a cap screening, solution that automation for corrective action programs and being able to screen your corrective actions reports was the first kind of commercial machine learning technology that was put forth and deployed across the US and Canada. In 2022, the world started to get a much more interesting place when it comes to AI. In November, we had ChatGPT got released. In 2 months, we hit 100 million users on ChatGPT. This is the fastest adoption of any technology ever. Fastest number of users, faster than Google, faster than, iPhones, anything like that, any sort of, technology. This was the fastest in history. What we are starting to see, in 2022 is that generative AI was going to be really the next general purpose technology. Really kind of the last new general purpose technology was the internet. And before that was personal computers in the 1980s. So it's something that only comes out, every couple decades. The world is sort of the before ChatGPT got released and afterwards. In nuclear in 2023, we started to see, people are interested in ChatGPT, but we're not really ready for generative yet. But we are starting to use much more kind of business specific machine learning solutions. They are starting to be deployed across, larger parts of the industry. And we're starting to see some generative AI proof of concepts, like people are putting their little toes in, but not trusting generative AI yet. When we get to 2024, we start to get to the idea of having secure generative AI, something that works for nuclear, something that's very specific. We had for nuclear, and we brought Atom Assist out as the first, nuclear generative AI solution, secured generative AI. Can actually be done on premise. It can be air gapped. Being able to have that level of security, especially for data. You don't want to be putting up, from a nuclear perspective, you don't want to be putting up nuclear documents into standard models where they can be trained in, and that's something that could be publicly available. So how to have generative AI that can be deployed locally, that can be trusted. So as we started to see in 2024, people are interested. The technology started to get better. The models started to enable more types of business use cases. But we really want to be able to get to the point where we can trust and verify. And so as we start to get from 2024 into 2025, AI is starting to be used within the industry for a lot more basic tasks, both from the machine learning side, expanding out, as well as with generative. We're also starting to see the first agentic use cases where you're using a combination of different models, being able to have it go and do actions for you, whether it's going and getting, the latest information from the NRC website and putting that together and creating a data set and comparing, your documents against, the latest regulations. We're starting to see some very complex use cases being used in nuclear. Really that generative AI and especially the agentic parts are going to be the parts that are starting to allow us to really be able to solve the much more complex business challenges. So that's kind of what we're looking at currently, current state with customers across the industry. So next slide, please. One of the reasons why, we're seeing so much adoption for generative AI and for AI across the industry is really being driven by a couple of things that are going on actually within the nuclear workforce. The nuclear industry had been very staid, even kind of declining for quite a long time. And then all of a sudden, as AI has ramped up, there's also an enormous need for power to be able to power the data centers that are driving artificial intelligence. And so suddenly nuclear became like the cool kid on the block. And so there is a huge demand now rising. We're looking at nuclear capacity of growing from like 600 or 378 gigawatts to like 575 gigawatts by 2040, which, if you guys are checking that, that's like 15 years. That's a huge amount of growth. There's also industry trends where, because this was a very state industry, because there was not growth, there's a really aging workforce. There was not a lot of people that came in that are kind of mid-career, that are ready to move up in. You've got the very experienced people that are ready to retire. These are the people that are your experts. They know where everything is. They know how to find all the information. They know the right processes. They're getting ready to retire, and there's not that same level of expertise being able to come in. So there's, very much an aging workforce, but a lot of those really experienced people are aging out and looking to retire. And then you've got those mid-career professionals that are suddenly, hadn't been able to have a lot of career growth because there wasn't a lot of expansion, now really being able to step in, and then also trying to figure out how do we expand out that pipeline for the younger generation. What we are seeing is that AI is going to be able to help us support the industry and support, whether it's being able to find the documentation, whether it's be able to support kind of like what the experts did, to enable people to be able to get information faster, to be able to find information faster, to be able to report and produce faster. And then also being able to support people coming in, where younger professionals are able to work faster at a higher level and produce, more to support the industry. There's a lot of things that we have to be able to do in order to scale the nuclear industry. We really have to scale how we work, because the way that we have worked has been so manual and really has not changed. There's not been much disruption within the industry processes. But in order for us to be able to suddenly ramp up exponentially, we also have to change the way that we do work exponentially. AI is one, driving the need for more nuclear energy, but it's also driving the capabilities to be able to support the industry. Next slide. We're also seeing some current trends. Right now we're kind of experiencing some growing pains within the AI industry in nuclear. Some of our early things we're seeing with customers, the early deployments really relied on the super users, the people that were so excited to see the new technology. They wanted to get their hands on it, whether it was easy to use or they had to work really hard to be able to understand it. They wanted something that was very flexible. They wanted to be able to tinker. But you need to be able to scale across and be able to, be able to scale your implementations and scale the adoption and make people feel empowered. You really are struggling if those solutions aren't really user-friendly, if they're not something that people feel very comfortable with. Something we're seeing like early, Microsoft Copilot, they started to get rolled out. People are like, this is cool, but then I don't really know how to use it beyond making it, make this sound more professional or help me do this. Or internal RAG. So, retrieval augmented generations, where you're using an AI system to be able to go and get information and use that information to help in the response. So those are some of the things that we are starting to see, were deployed. People are really excited about it, but having some challenges with adoption because, trying to scale, making sure we've got the skill sets and the support to be able to scale out. We're also starting to see much more complicated problems getting, really much more complicated problems AI is being asked to solve within the industry. When we talk about the frontier models, something that, what's coming out in the next things with OpenAI or with Grok, what's coming up next, they're starting to solve much more complex things. And we're also trying to figure out how do we use that same complex problem-solving capabilities, but doing it in a secure fashion that works for nuclear. Really, that comes around to do agentic workflows. So being able to use a whole series of different models, being able to combine that with different information, different data sets, how you write prompts, how you write series of prompts, to be able to create agents that will go and do actions. Even being able to create agents that will manage a team of other agents to go and do things. When you look at what large language models are able to do, some large language models are really good at being able to go and take actions, whether it's gathering information or creating SQL to be able to do analysis and provide insights, write a report. Some of them are also really good at being able to validate information. You're also starting to see a lot more large language models being trained to solve, particular use cases. Like we've got Gamma 2, which is our, nuclear knowledgeable large language model because, as nuclear professionals, we need to be able to have an AI that actually understands nuclear information. And so being able to see some of those more tailored language models that when they're really good at one thing, they're not so good at some of the other activities. And so being able to have agents that use a variety of different models that have different type of capabilities together really empowers a lot of capabilities within the industry. Some of the things that we're starting to see kind of on the front end parts that are really kind of just coming out of R&D in the industry are starting to do like 5059 reviews and using a series of large language models. Something to do like a 5059 review, it's anywhere from about 80 to 100 different calls into different large language models to gather information, to do analysis, to validate reports in order to be able to get something that could be a first draft that a human could be able to review and edit. We're also starting to see that there's a lot of power when you start to put, AI models with software layers. AI is really being embedded now into a lot of the core software systems. This allows you to have much better traceability. It really is able to let, especially your cybersecurity teams feel much more comfortable that it actually has, the security, you've got the, reportability, the traceability workflows, and the decision support. So it allows you to be able to better control the model when you're able to put it in with a software layer. Some of the business use cases that we're seeing this being used really kind of throughout the industry is starting to build out like outage planning. When you actually build in like risk analysis tools that leverage AI, whether it's like Monte Carlo models or being able to use, qualitative analysis to be able to optimize your outage schedules, but be able to do that in a really secure fashion by combining both that software platform that everyone's familiar with and then being able to use the models on the back end to be able to optimize that analysis. Next, please. So now that we know kind of where we are currently, I've had a lot of questions at different events for what do we think, as the kind of industry experts for AI and nuclear, where do we think the industry is going in the next 5 years? We saw that it went from being very basic machine learning models all the way through to agentic generative AI done in a secure fashion. That's the last 5 years. And this is, I think, if I was to compare this, AI as general purpose technology to where like other general purpose technologies, we're just at the point where people start to log on to like yahoo.com and start to maybe have a chat room experience. Like it's really, really early on for like internet, or, we're at the point where you're now starting to have like the Apple green screen, two computers where you can play Oregon Trail from like a personal computer standpoint. Like we're really, really early on in kind of that cycle of AI as a general purpose technology. So some of the things that we're seeing and some of the predictions that we have, some of these might be a little controversial. So if you want to have questions, we'd love to, have some conversation around that in the later part of the webinar is around, really one, switching the focus from just broad AI adoption, like we're going to adopt AI, to really being much more specific around how you use AI to drive business value. Really being able to understand how it solves specific business problems, not just, we're going to get AI, it's going to be great, but what are you going to do with that? How is the AI actually enabling your workforce to be able to, write reports better? Is it, to be able to do better outage planning? Is it to be able to, understand how you can do your finances more efficiently from like a capital versus, OpEx perspective? We're also seeing too, workforce development and training is really going to grow and increase to support the AI adoption. It's a whole different skill set. We don't expect people to just be able to pick up AI and understand exactly how to do it and how to do it efficiently and effectively. There's going to be a lot of training, kind of like how people had to go through training of how you use computers, whether it was mainframes or it was the personal computers in the 80s and 90s. We're going to see a lot of training being able to take place to be able to help people understand how to utilize this technology and how to utilize it in a safe and secure manner for nuclear professionals. We also are predicting that, in the next 5 years, every employee is going to use AI every day. AI is being implemented in so many different capacities, whether it is being able to use, AI for vision analysis, be able to use it to understand your, PI and your sensor data, be able to create insights, whether you're on the operations side, whether you're on licensing and being able to use generative AI to help you, write any sort of licensing changes, from engineering, be able to understand what you need to do, how you optimize your supply chain. Like AI is going to be incorporated into the industry for everybody. It's going to probably be different types of AI, but every employee is going to use AI every day. Partly because there's just not going to be enough, intelligent nuclear professionals to be able to support that level of growth. And so in order for us to be able to all work more efficiently and more effectively and take on more individually to be able to support all the needs for the growing nuclear industry, we're going to use AI to be able to help fill in those gaps. We also are predicting that at least one NRC approved use of an AI system for automatically making safety-related operational decisions. We're starting to see the NRC be a lot more comfortable with AI, being able to engage with AI. They've had several workshops, which you may have been able to participate either in person or remotely, around how AI could be used in the industry. We're not at the point yet where people want to be able to use it for any sort of safety related or operational decisions, but that is where the industry is going. In order for us to be able to get much better real-time insights, being able to take very quick and very decisive actions, there are going to be, we think, at least one system that gets approved in the next 5 years from the NRC perspective to be able to take those safety related decisions. We're also seeing that in order to fund all of this, nuclear IT budgets will have to probably double. And the vast majority of that is actually going to be going into artificial intelligence, being able to expand out whether it is, working with a vendor or a partner like Nuclear or others that are in the industry, or being able to, invest and do some of these things internally themselves. We are also seeing that corporate IT departments are going to shift back into the nuclear side. Really, that because AI and software is going to be really critical to running the plant, it's not going to be just done up at that corporate level. It's really going to get back into where the nuclear professionals and the nuclear IT is really driving how that budget gets spent in order to really optimize the way that it's working for the industry. We're also expecting, kind of on the side, that there's going to be likely at least one NRC, cited violation related to unvetted AI output. There's going to be some things that are coming up, whether it is people not reviewing information that maybe a generative AI solution has put forth and being able to report in. That's an area that could be a concern. So that's something definitely to be aware of. You also, the best practice is always making sure that whatever the AI does, it is a tool. You're the nuclear professional. You need to review it. You need to edit it. You need to put your expertise into it. It's just a tool to be able to optimize. The next one is that the technology will be capable of running the plant with about 40% fewer headcount. And we think at least one plant will actually be running with at least 25% fewer headcount. On that side, being able to use the technology, there's going to be technology that's going to be capable of doing it versus, people feeling comfortable. We do think that there is going to be a need for fewer professionals in each plant because the technology is going to be able to support what they are looking to do. Next. So really the question is, how do you set yourself up for success? How do you drive, your professional development to make sure that you are able to take advantage of all the things that AI is doing and also protect yourself for any questions that come up? One, if you are not yet investing in your knowledge about AI, you're probably behind. Not behind so much that you can't catch up at all, but you need to really be able to grow and experience what you're looking at doing. Second, AI is really changing at a rapid pace. Don't just adopt a rigid strategy. It's something that, the technology is changing really quickly. And so being able to support that with very iterative, practices, being able to move quickly based on what's sort of best practices as that changes is going to be really important. Also, don't just adopt, blanket AI tools, target specific, really value driving use cases. We want to make sure that everything is going to be focused on driving business value. And we want to make sure that you support, workforce training. This is going to be a huge change for the industry, and we want to make sure that we bring all of us together with us, and we're able to really to understand how to best utilize AI efficiently. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, for that great presentation. And let's actually move right into Q&A. There are a couple of questions that we'd like to ask Sarah while this presentation is still fresh. Question in the Q&A from Diane. I don't see design on this list, and she's referring to your predictions for the next 5 years slide. As we think of ramping up deployment of AP1000s and SMRs, are you applying AI to pre-development design, construction planning, or do you combine this with safety?
Sorry, my computer cut out for 1 second. Would you mind saying that just one more time real quick?
Yeah, so Diane had a question. I don't see design on this list, and she's talking about your predictions.
Mm-hmm.
As we think of ramping up deployment of AP1000s and SMRs, are you applying AI to pre-development design, construction planning, or do you combine this with safety? So no go for now.
So I think really, we're seeing customers from a licensing standpoint being able to utilize like generative AI. We also see, work orders. We see a lot of things that are coming on from project planning and project optimization. So there's pieces of AI that are being utilized, whether it's, kind of an, expansion, or whether it's an SMR, or it's, kind of moving into different parts of the industry. So it's not just like one AI solution is solving all the problems in that area, but there are tools that are being utilized to optimize project schedules, to be able to optimize, reporting and, licensing information that's required. And then also being able to optimize kind of communication, how things are getting from one place to the next. So AI is definitely getting utilized it's just not one single solution that's doing it.
And another question I have here, if you can just bear with me for 1 second. You mentioned that AI is already helping with documentation and analysis. Can you share any examples of how that's actually working inside the plant?
Yeah, so what we are hearing and seeing is that, sorry, you cut out one more time. I'm sorry, the hotel Wi-Fi is not awesome.
Sure. Let me ask my question again. I'm sorry, I just have to switch my screens here. So so you mentioned that AI is already helping with documentation and analysis. And so we were wondering how is that actually working inside the plant?
Yeah, okay, great, thanks. So really what we are seeing is that people are using, kind of secure generative AI to be able to take whether it's analysis and be able to optimize and write reports on it. There's also a lot of things that we're doing with retrieval augmented generation. Like if you have like a corrective action that is coming in and you're trying to figure out what work order needs to be done, being able to take that corrective action report, be able to use AI to find the things that are most similar from like a qualitative basis, and then be able to also then use AI to find the work orders that have been most similar, and then drafting what the work order would likely be based on that history. So really using some of that retrieval augmented generation and using the previous documents that have been done in order to produce, documentation that would be very similar and of what that company has done before. So that's one of the ways. We also see it really being used, if comparing sort of like new NRC regulations and, reviewing like licensing documentation. Are there things that we need to update from a licensing document in order to be able to support what the new regulations are as they're coming out? So, that's just a couple of different examples of the way that AI is being used from documentations currently.
Great, thanks. We have a question from Joseph. I'm sorry, I just assumed Joseph. What is the fastest way to learn and use AI beyond refining documents? Utilizing real, wait a second, where'd the question go? But utilizing real data and spreadsheets.
So really, there's a lot of different ways of being able to become knowledgeable about AI. One, there is great training and education that you can get for free, even on your own. If you're, if your utility or your site is not really investing into AI training yet, Coursera is a great place to be able to do a lot of free trainings. There is excellent information that like Microsoft and Google has put out around, how do different types of, whether it's large language models or machine learning models, how do they actually work? How do you utilize them? What's the way to be able to kind of streamline what they're looking at? Or being able to partner with the vendor. We do a lot of training for our customers to be able to help them understand how, AI can be used and how you can be able to apply that in different parts of the business, whether it's, on the financial side, whether it's on the outage management side, whether it's, on the regulatory licensing side or engineering. Being able to partner with a vendor who is knowledgeable to be able to do that training and to bring, you and your colleagues along with them.
Great, thank you. Question for Lana. Have you seen new jobs or new skill sets developed with the use of robotics?
I love this question. I was actually typing this long-winded response, and I'm going to still type it and talk about it at the same time so you can all see it. Yes, so a lot of the time we tend to hear that, the robots are going to take our jobs. And what we're actually finding is quite the opposite. The robots are saving your jobs because they're preventing your injury, they're preventing death, they're preventing you from your loss of your valuable home life, like balancing work because you're not at work the extra 4 hours trying to do all this extra things in your workday that can be supplemented. I mean, every one of us every day, I am certain we feel like we do 140% of what any one human being should do. And these tools are really intended to make you feel like you're doing 100%, and you have a supplement helping you balance that load. As to new skills specifically, we've discovered a great number of things. I know I previously mentioned here at the Tennessee Valley Authority, we have multiple FAA, Federal Aviation Administration licensed pilots for drones. They can't fly commercial airlines, but there is a specific license for flying in airspace above, I believe it's 500 feet. So anytime a drone is flown, you must have a special FAA license to do so. There are additional licenses issued by the Environmental Protection Agency. So we have some robotics that we use in the Tennessee Valley Authority specifically because environment is one of our big E's. It's one of our big mission statements, is maintaining the environment in the valley. And we very much handle invasive species. We very much handle fertilizing and transplanting native plants. We manage a lot of cave systems. And we have a lot of environmental engineers that in the Tennessee Valley Authority who use these robotics. When you can't shine a flashlight because you might damage a bat population, you can put a robot potentially placed in a strategic way, have it very quietly crawl in, no light needed because it can get infrared imagery. So there are a number of skills from piloting to understanding the actual protocols and necessities and permitting capabilities. We're seeing even further down that rabbit hole, a lot of robotics require not one person to use them, but as many as 3. You have one person who is piloting. Their whole job is to not crash the robot. You have one person who's interpreting the imagery because it might be thermography, it might be infrared, it might be any number of different things that you might be gathering. You might have one person who, I didn't mention it very clearly, but photogrammetry. Lasers, 3D LiDAR does not work underwater. So instead, we take photos at an extremely rapid shutter rate. And there is the capability of taking all those photos and putting them together and still being able to produce a 3D image. That is a very deeply qualified job to be able to do something like that. So there are actually a great number of jobs growing from our use of robotics while protecting the people who are working currently.
Great. Thank you, Lana, for that response. Just one more. We have time for literally a 1-minute question. Matthew was asking, he was asking actually a follow-up question. How practical would the advancement of drone technology be with each drone working together with a hive mind in the industry or the nuclear or nuclear? And again, that's for Lana.
I thought it might be, but I'm going to have you repeat it so I can make sure I understand it before I speak.
Yeah, how practical would the advancement of drone technology be with each drone working together with a hive mind?
Oh, so that is something that is a very unique. So this is completely not associated with the Tennessee Valley Authority. I want to be very clear about that. I am just a nerd and I follow a lot of things that are going on with the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, and a number of agencies across North America. And in Canada, specifically, I want to say it's Ontario Power Group, there is some investigation in the ability of using drones in a grid-like setup where I mentioned earlier the Skydio X10 has a dock, that those docks can interconnect and quote unquote speak to each other and cover surveillance areas. And that's not to remove the necessity for security, but it's to take the load off the security for having 360-degree vision all the time, because we all know that's not possible. So if the drone footage can get that 360-degree surveillance capacity, then the human being can react more promptly and with significantly better results. So there is a lot of capability and potential there. Additionally, when we experienced Winter Storm Helene, one drone was not enough. We had drones in the sky at night, we had drones in the sky at day. If each and every one of those were an interconnected system, that hive mind style, where they were working together to transmit data back to our rescue agencies, to FEMA, the capability, I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about the lives that could be saved. So I think the potential is great. Like I said, the growth in the industry, not the nuclear industry, and the robotics industry is going to see so many different kinds of jobs without risk to human life.
Great. Thank you so much, Lana. Well, folks, we're at the end of our webinar, so I'd like to take a moment to thank Brian Carroll, Lana Eilertsen, Dr. John Brockman, and Sarah Peden for being our esteemed guests today. Again, this webinar will be posted on the US Win YouTube channel, and I'd like to also take a moment to thank all the wonderful folks in US Win who bring these webinars to you. Also, we have 2 publications as part of our US Win PD Week. This was our 3rd webinar. We also have 2 PD library publications, so please do check those out. Again, this is a volunteer organization, so all the good folks are doing this on top of their jobs. So if you like our presentations, please let others know and show off some of these webinar videos as they're posted to YouTube. Again, I'd like to also thank our partners at NEI, Caitlin Ricola and Kay Foley, who help us run these webinars on their Zoom platform and cooperate with us. And with this, again, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you to our speakers, and have a great rest of your week.